Browns, Panthers. Let's get into it. Next game, NFL Week 1. One with a ton of storylines, obviously, given the Baker Mayfield situation and just frankly the turmoil going around these two teams. But we're here to talk about football. Let's talk about the football side. That's what we want to do, right? So this is the Browns offense. Obviously, some big changes, notably at quarterback with Jacoby Brissett starting this game. And they bring in Amari Cooper, change at center, some things like that. And the Panthers defense, a lot of guys coming back, actually, mostly the same people as last year. But we'll see, have they gotten any better? What do they look like going forward? So, can the Browns score in this game? We'll get to the Panthers offense second, but first with the Browns. Can they run the ball? Now, that's the number one question with the Browns, right? Because as opposed to basically every other offense in the NFL, they're way, way more focused on whether or not they can consistently sustain drives on the ground. They're built around an incredibly good offensive line. Their coach runs the highest percentage of run plays in the NFL that you're going to find. And that's what we got to talk about, right? So the first thing to note is the Browns, despite losing J.C. Tretter, who I think is one of the best centers in football, although he didn't quite play up to that level last year, are still incredibly good, having 4 out of 5 actually elite players at their positions, at least moving forward, run blocking. Jack Conklin is absolutely incredible. Wyatt Teller's really, really good. Joel Bitonio, also really, really good. Jedrick Wills, one of the best young run blocking tackles in football. Now, Ethan Pochich they bring over, he is definitely not to the standard of what they've been used to. He, however, is coming off some of his best work in Seattle, probably his best year, actually, I think by far. And while he's not going to be a huge add in the run game, from center, you can live without it, especially the way in which the Browns run it, more built on getting movement at the offensive line as opposed to having their center, cutting off safeties way down the field, that type of stuff. So that's a positive. And this Panthers run defense is, frankly, it's good and bad. There are teams they're going to have success with, teams that they're not, right? So you look at the personnel, obviously, and the number one you have to start with is Derrick Brown. Derrick Brown is one of my absolute favorite players in football. The dude is gigantic. He's just a monster. He consistently kills offensive linemen. He actually disrupts plays. He's not just a big fat guy. He gets way into the backfield. Really, really, really good. Other than him, though, their run personnel at the line of scrimmage is just, it's subpar. Mike Ioannidis, I'm a huge fan of as a player, but should be way more of a rotational pass rusher. Especially given his injury history at this point. Bravion Roy is just kind of bad, a late-round pick from a few years ago that's still getting a lot of snaps on this team, likely. And their ends, I like Brian Burns a ton as a player, and he definitely got a lot better as a run defender last year. He's still a little bit undersized for that position. He still really leans on trying to knife around guys and going against the grain the wrong direction, which sometimes does work as to how athletic he is. But sometimes, especially against better tackles like he'll be playing in this game, can lead to him getting absolutely stomped out of position and leaving big holes behind him. I like Yetur Gross-Matos a lot too. He's a really big guy who theoretically, physically can compete, but again, I mean, the standard that the Browns have on the edges is just so wild that it's tough. They also bring over like Henry Anderson, who does have some size there, but more of an interior player should be than a edge guy. So yeah, the answer is I think the Browns can run the ball, especially given what the Panthers situation is linebacker. Now, I've thought this for a long time. Panthers fans, I think, probably still not super happy about it, but the truth is Panthers linebackers are just really, really bad and are huge contributors to why this defense has been so bad for the last 2-3 years, since they lost Luke Kuechly, basically. Shaq Thompson is just not primary guy. Maybe if he was your third linebacker, you can get away with it. But him and Corey Littleton, they both really fit into this. The idea is they're really good players, but in practice, there are way too many mental mistakes, way too much, not laziness, but just mispositioning to really be useful. Corey Littleton especially is just so weak once he contacts any offensive player that he's really a struggle to have a good run defense with, unless you're incredibly good like he was around him, like he was on the Rams. And that's, yeah, Shaq Thompson, he's big and he theoretically has the athleticism, but you watch him on the field, he doesn't use it. He seems to, everything is a step slow to him most of the time, unless he's like really just blitzing or was going there anyway on a pre-snap decision. And against the Browns, they just really concern me because both of them are going to make enough mistakes over the course of this game that I'm really concerned about the Browns just over and over again throwing really big plays out there. And it's not like the rest of the Panthers defense on the outside is going to help that a lot. Their corners are just all non-tacklers, basically. We'll see about J.C. Horn. He's a second-year player who didn't play a ton in his rookie year, but That's really scary. Jeremy Chin is a big help in this game for sure, and it actually does kind of make up for a lot of stuff I was just worried about. But he's only one safety, and the other one, Xavier Woods, is effectively a pass-only player most of the time. He'll make some crazy-ass kamikaze plays, but it doesn't happen frequently. So overall, I'm really worried about the state of the Panthers' run defense in this game, which is something the Browns are happy to exploit given their quarterback situation. So I think the Browns are pretty consistent, and that's not even talking about how good Nick Chubb is just in general anyway, too. So even if plays don't work out, he's going to be this huge factor as far as maintaining the consistency of them moving the ball on the ground. Kareem Hunt, too. Two of the 5-6 best running backs in the league, both on the same team. So then can they throw the ball on top of that? And again, I think the answer more or less is yes. Now, Jacoby Brissett, definitely not like a starting level quarterback, especially for a good team. But when given time in the pocket and given clear open options, he can function fine. And especially out of the amount of play action and screen stuff that Stefanski's going to do in this game pretty clearly, he'll have open options, especially with what I talked about, the linebackers being out of position so consistently. They're going to be just pitch-catch throws that he can make that are going to make his stat line look better than he probably actually is. And he does have Amari Cooper now. Amari Cooper coming over, who is, despite what his stats, he's been really crazy situations in a lot of times in his career, and sometimes he is guilty of disappearing himself, sure, but when he is playing on the field and not hurt, the vast majority of the time, he is an absolute dominant wide receiver who consistently destroys corners right off the line of scrimmage. And there are other receivers. Donovan Peoples-Jones is okay. We'll see rookie David Bell. You don't know Anthony Schwartz, third-round pick last year, really fast guy. But really, Amari Cooper is the important one. And David Njoku, I should mention, too, a player I think is really, really good, who'll have a chance to shine now that Austin Hooper's gone. And he's had chances before, but I don't know if he was ready. What happened then. I think David Njoku is really good, though. So you have active weapons. And again, who is covering these guys on the Panthers? Right, I think they'll be okay in certain matchups because there's a chance J.C. Horn is really good, and C.J. Henderson I actually think can play, and was a mistake for the Jaguars to let him go, despite the personal stuff. But Dante Jackson's really bad. Again, another one Panthers fans might hate. Sorry, there's a reason your defense sucks so consistently with these same guys out there. The dude, he's just fast. He consistently gets beat. He's horrible ball skills most of the time. He's really weak. A lot of problems with him. Amari Cooper is going to do... That one's scary. And while C.J. Henderson, J.C. Horn, like I said, they can probably cover these other Browns receivers decently, it's not going to be this complete shutdown situation. And David Njoku can kill any of the second-level Panthers defenders, except for maybe Jeremy Chin a little bit. And with the way the Browns scheme stuff, I have a lot of confidence in them moving the ball. So I have them at 26 to 32 points. I think, like I said, this Browns offense can be really successful because they can run the ball consistently and explosively on top of having real passing options when they opt into doing so. So can the Panthers keep up? Well, we'll see. There are some encouraging things. So obviously, they bring over Baker Mayfield from the Browns, a kind of unique quarterback in a lot of ways. They get Christian McCaffrey back from injury, a huge deal. They have a top 5 pick in Ike Ekwonu, starting a left tackle, and they bring over Austin Corbett. So there's some real new faces here, and they're playing Browns defense, who is actually kind of the opposite. A lot of the same guys, but a lot of really talented players. There are some clear holes in this defense, so we'll talk about, but a lot of good players here. So first, can the Panthers run the ball? You know what? I actually think they're going to be kind of okay. The Panthers' offensive line, especially on the interior, I think is at guard is okay. Austin Corbett's a good player. He has his moments of falling flat on his face at times, but he's overall a pretty good player. Brady Christensen, I did think handled being a tackle last year pretty well. He's a little bit underwhelming as far as a positive guy, but I don't think he did anything too bad or negatively. He wasn't getting babied out there, so I do think he can play, especially once he's moving into guard. Pat Elflein is still absolutely horrible, and I listed Bradley Bozeman here because I actually think it's literally insane that he's not starting in this game, or just starting in general. Bradley Bozeman is actually a good player. Pat Elflein is absolutely not. But that's the reality. So that's what you have on the interior. And then you have Taylor Moton, what do they call him? Icky at tackle. Taylor Moton is one of the best tackles in football. Absolutely a lot better in the pass phase, I think, than in the running game. But this interior is decent. And this Browns defensive line is absolutely kind of, I don't know if soft is the right word, but it isn't at a real high standard this year. Jordan Elliott is a pretty good player, but he's not an individual impact guy necessarily, not somebody who's going to consistently kill linemen. Tommy Togiai is, I think, kind of going to be out there as a nose tackle. I don't know if he's going to start. Taven Bryan, while I think he did recover from being a complete bust in Jacksonville, isn't still like a starter quality player. And then, then they have a rookie there, Perrion Winfrey. So this interior is a little soft. So I actually think the Panthers can win there a little bit. The edges, however, the Browns have the two best run defending edges in football by a large margin. Jadeveon Clowney, while not elite as a pass rusher, certainly is absolutely elite as an edge run defender. The guy's a monster there. And Myles Garrett is every bit the same. Those two dudes just consistently constrict run lanes. They have the wherewithal themselves to make plays, to shed tacklers. I'm not going to spit too much about how good they are, but they're incredible. And for as good as I think these Panthers tackles can be, in the run game, especially in Ike Ekwuonu's first game, I don't have a lot of faith in that. So that one is, I think, an issue. But Christian McCaffrey is good enough. I actually do rather like the way the scheme runs, or this team schemes the run game. So there is a little bit of something there. But if they can't really run the ball a ton, can they throw the ball? That is the huge question here. So we'll start with the pass rush, right? Oh, I should mention, we'll get back to it at the end too. Is there a ton of pass rush for the Browns here? Well, yes and no. There's one gigantic question mark about this game that could influence a lot of things, and that's how good is Ekwonu in his first game against the best pass rusher in football, right? The likely answer to that is not good at all. And if Myles Garrett absolutely destroys him, then a lot of what I'm talking about kind of goes out the window, because you're talking about a guy in Myles Garrett who can be a singular destructive force on a defense that is basically preventative of the offense even moving the ball a lot of times. He really is that good. But that's not guaranteed. If Ekwonu can at least stand up a little bit, then it gets a lot better, because Taylor Moton is really good. And like I said, Jadeveon Clowney is just not an impressive pass rusher. So that edge, I think a lot of times, is going to be safe. I can't imagine the Browns would switch those two guys a ton, their edges. So you're probably okay there. And on the interior, as Jordan Elliott is a little bit of a pass rusher and the Panthers interior is just not good enough as a rule to be like completely clean, they're probably mostly also going to be okay. And if that's the case, if there is at least a little bit of time because of the Myles Garrett thing, then what does it look like once we get down the field? Well, it's okay for the Panthers. I do like the Browns secondary. I think Denzel Ward is elite. I think Greedy Williams and Greg Newsome can both play and are both starter-level players. But those guys aren't shutdown guys. And these Panthers receivers, specifically DJ Moore and Robbie Anderson, are okay. They even have Rashard Higgins there, who's pretty good too. But DJ Moore is a guy who I don't love as like an elite number one receiver a lot of times, especially when he gets open during routes or down the field. But he ain't like bad at it for sure. He's still pretty good at that. Robbie Anderson is so goddamn fast. Just any crossing route with him is just this huge danger, and he's quick enough to win in routes too, even against these better players. This is kind of a tie goes the offense situation, I think. Outside of Denzel Ward, there's a world where he really sticks DJ Moore in this game. But mostly I think they're going to be okay, and their other weapons are, we have Christian McCaffrey, right? People, I probably forgot at this point in a lot of ways how unbelievably good Christian McCaffrey is, how much of a driver he can be for an offense in the pass game. The dude just dumpsters mediocre or even good coverage guys, non-corners, and that's going to come up with the Browns. Jeremiah Owusu-Koramoah is theoretically that type of player who competes with him, and he's not even a bad player. But he ain't good enough. Anthony Walker I like as actually now he's fully healthy back and everything, as like a really stout middle of the field, even pass defender. I think he's pretty good at it. Again, not good enough for Christian McCaffrey and Sione Takitaki. That's just a nightmare. They do have John Johnson, who is kind of in the realm of players I think he can compete. John Johnson is a really good player, but you don't really necessarily want him up by the line of scrimmage, man coverage with Christian McCaffrey or anything like that. Ronnie Harrison does not have the lateral agility, and Grant Delpit really falls that same thing. So Christian McCaffrey can do so much work through the air in this game, especially because I think he is going to have that little bit of time to actually win and not just be a dump-off option. Ian Thomas is actually kind of okay, too. He doesn't match up nearly as well with those guys, but he is good enough to be something. So there's options for this Panthers offense, so it comes down to Baker Mayfield, right? And Baker Mayfield is a reasonably good quarterback. He has huge issues when he plays into specific types of defenses. He can't handle weird zones. He can't handle matchup stuff like that. He is not particularly good into a lot of pass rush, which is not unique to him, of course. And he's really dangerous once he throws the ball down the field. The guy just refuses to throw touch passes. It's insane. It's really funny. But regardless of all that, he does make decent decisions most of the time. He can handle a pocket okay. He can make plays with his legs. And given the options that are available to him, and like I said, unless Myles Garrett is just in his lap every 0.5 seconds, there's enough, specific mostly through Christian McCaffrey, for them to move the ball with some efficiency. And once they get into the red zone, what's different this year versus before is that when Christian McCaffrey's on the field, he's probably the best red zone weapon in football, except for maybe Devontae Adams. And he wins so quick that he kind of, regardless how good the rest of your offense is, makes it so that you're likely to score. Which means I think the Panthers actually can keep up with the Browns offense. So I have them at 24 to 32 points. I really do think that both of these teams are set up really well offensively in this game. And that's not even to say that these defenses are bad. I just, in general, like the way that these offenses match up, at least to a point. So I do still think the Browns are going to win because the Browns running game is the most consistent and the hardest winning aspect of football in this game. And they have shown in the past, with a fair amount of consistency, that that is enough for them, regardless of how the quarterback plays. So I do still like the Browns to win this game. Betting-wise, though, the over-under of this game is set at 42. That's wild to me. I do kind of get it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they hit close to that in the first half. I mean, Baker Mayfield is a high-variance player. He makes turnovers, too, that can lead to scoring, and he can score and actually put in touchdowns himself. Like I said, the Browns' run game, it's not this straightforward clock-killing type thing. It is really explosive at times, and it can create a ton of offense. I mean, we can see that in the Browns' numbers the last few years, right, with Kevin Stefanski. And I like the way that the Panthers can probably move the ball here, too. They're the ones that scare me, and that's why I like the Browns to win this game in general, and why, if I had to take a side to beat them, is that I don't see the Browns being bad on offense, where there's at least that chance that Baker Mayfield does have one of his really bad games and torpedoes the Panthers, and or the Browns' defense is just better and more talented. But overall, I do think that this is a really fun game. It should be, at least, and I do like the Browns to win it.